This week, we have a new language model announcement, and in fact, not even just one, but two announcements. And those two have broken the internet, and they're both from Google. Now, we know that Google, you could argue, has been not winning the AI race. You could probably argue that it's not losing, but it's definitely not winning for some time. But obviously now, everything just changed, to the point where Sam Altman has come out to his entire company and said that he is worried. He's worried about slower growth and huge competition. And for context, the Gemini app and the Nano Banana applications have hit number one on the App Store, have generated hundreds of millions of images, and have gone completely viral. It's scored higher on almost every single benchmark than most language models out there, and it can do things that make image generation finally truly useful for everyday users. Anyway, in today's episode, I'm going to go through the different things you can now do with these Gemini models. This is In the Loop with Jack Horton, and I hope you enjoy the show. So let's start with a little bit of background on this, because on November 18th, Google launched Gemini 3 Pro, the main competitor model to the OpenAI ChatGPTs of the world. 2 days later came Nano Banana Pro, which is their image generation model. Now, officially it's called Gemini 3 Pro Image, but everyone's been calling it Nano Banana from the previous earlier versions that have been teased online. And if you've been online recently in the AI community, you will know that this model has been hyped by the community in a way that we've probably never seen in a model since early ChatGPT days. Now, if you remember the episode, I think 5 or 6 weeks ago, where I talked about the new Google Pixel phone having AI in it, it was actually overshadowed in some ways by the fact that everybody was hoping that Nano Banana was going to be released, and they didn't release it. So that gives you a kind of insight into just how much hype there's been around this model release. And I mean, they're really building Google here, because they've got about 650 monthly users on their Gemini application. They have 13 million developers now building on top of their models. And now both of these models they've just released are available inside the main applications. And as we speak, being rolled out across every single product feature you can possibly think of. Now let's get into all the cool things you can now do with these models. Okay, so I think of the two models I want to talk about today, so Gemini 3 Pro, which is kind of the competitor to OpenAI's ChatGPT and Claude, and then the Nano Banana, which is the competitor to the likes of Sora and other big image generation models. I think I want to start with Nano Banana because it's probably provided some of the most exciting new capabilities I've seen in a very long time. So the first major capability it's developed and built on is the way it deals with text. So it's now supports every single language and deals with text perfectly. So every other image model breaks when it comes to text. You know, ask DALL-E or other providers to create a product label with English, Korean, and Arabic. You often get a lot of mistakes and AI slop. Midjourney can't handle non-Latin scripts at all. Chinese characters might come out as random strokes. Arabic reads right to left incorrectly. There's just a lot of errors. And it's not something that's easy to do because there's a lot of detail there. Well, Nano Banana completely flips that on its head, and it enables you to do really cool things. So first, it can generate multilingual text from scratch. So someone tested, generating product cans with text on it across different languages, and it worked perfectly. The second big leap is the way it is able to now translate text that's already in images. This is genuinely new. Take a photo of a French restaurant menu and it'll be able to translate it to English. But going even further than that, it can match handwriting, or it can take information and text from one image and generate it inside another. So one of the most amazing examples so far I've seen is its ability to, I'll even get this example up on my phone here, match your handwriting. So you can actually write something on a notepad. Imagine writing on a notepad a maths equation or a problem, and then asking it to replicate that handwriting but complete the equation or write a page of notes. And it will just do that on the fly, and it matches your handwriting. So yeah, the way it deals with text is incredible. Another one, as a result, is its ability to just generate entire infographics and visual ways of representing information using text. Again, this is something that models just sucked at previously, and anyone that's tried to do this has probably been disappointed over and over again. So you can now just generate entire amazing whiteboard and infographic images instantly. So just imagine how this impacts marketing teams, for example, generating entire marketing campaigns for different regions at scale. You can just imagine Facebook or Meta ads that changes ads for not just a country, but a region or a street or so many different layers of subculture. Now, I personally find that kind of dark and terrifying, but you can see where this rolls out to and how this impacts the way things like marketing and information sharing go. Now, I, for one, find this quite a almost dark and scary concept. I always find big advertising and using data to generate new images to persuade us to buy things a little bit, as I say, dark and evil, but you can see how much of an impact this language model is going to have in that arena. So another major upgrade here, number 2, is its ability to maintain image identity across many different images. So within, say, 48 hours of launch, you suddenly saw images of sort of Elon Musk sat with a cigar with the Google CEO, with Jensen Huang, Sam Altman, other people like that. And it looked completely real. Now, a lot of the time, other image providers, they might be able to take lots of single images and combine them into a single image, but often it's just not that good. With Nano Banana, you can blend up to 14 images at once, whilst maintaining the appearance of up to 5 people. So now suddenly you've got people being generated in 3D, people uploading image selfies and turning themselves into figurines. Now, the people from A16Z used this for their leadership team's infographic. So they had 5 exec headshots with their actual appearances, family photos from individual shots, and they blended it together with Nano Banana, and everyone looks perfect, but it's now in a completely different context that looks super professional, but exactly like everybody. Now, going on to number 3, which really blows my mind, is how it can ground real-time data with its image generation. So previous image models might only know what they learned during training. So you ask DALL-E to create an infographic showing today's weather, it'll invent a plausible looking weather icon or image, but it won't make any sense because it won't be the actual weather. Or perhaps give it some coordinates of an event that's just happened and ask it to generate an image of that, what that event would have looked like. It wouldn't be able to do that. It would have no clue. Well, Nano Banana now can use Google search for injecting that real-time information about what's happening in the world that second to help it generate that information and image. So you can say, generate me an infographic or a visualization of an event that happened today. This search just happens automatically within Nano Banana. You don't have to use a different model or app. So yeah, just think about the output of creative in the world that's gonna be online as a result. I mean, anyone that's been online recently, you can just see so many Nano Banana images and videos out there all the time right now. And I mean, one of the things that I found amazing here is things like you can upload GPS coordinates and just ask Nano Banana to generate images of what that event might have looked like, both historic events and real-time events happening today. So yeah, safe to say that I've been blown away by this new model update. It's really set the tone and expectation of things going forward. Now, moving on to Gemini 3 Pro and its upgrading capabilities and, importantly, how good it's got at coding. So this is the 4th big upgrade by Google here. They claim that it's going to have multi-hour autonomous coding sessions because previous coding assistants, like Claude Code or others, might run for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes without losing context. Cursor can handle maybe an hour of continuous work before needing to be restarted or readjusted, or they hit token limits, lose track of what they're doing, or just start to make a lot of errors without any human intervention. Well, Google's what they call anti-gravity agents apparently can work for over 24 hours continuously. So Google's documentation says, in our internal evaluations, we observe Codex Max works on tasks for more than 24 hours. Now, apparently it uses something called compaction, which is a technique that essentially prunes its history whilst preserving context. So if you imagine a model going out there and doing things, it's constantly updating the information about that task. Now, if you can imagine you working for 3 hours with this agent, it suddenly collected 8 hours worth of information, context, things that you said you do and don't like. And after a while, it's trying to take too much in every time you want it to do a new thing. And so its performance can drop. This innovation essentially is auto reducing, improving, and compressing the amount of context it has so it can be more efficient and therefore go on for a longer and longer amount of time. So this means that Google claims that you could refactor an entire code base that might take weeks of time with a single prompt. Now, whether that's true or not, we'll see when we start to test it. And I'm sure the team internally at Mindset will be testing this very soon as well. So moving on to the fifth big update by Google. You can now build complete games, which, although might not sound exciting, these games can have complete physics and audio instantly. So previous models could generate a game quite simply, but it doesn't actually always work. And, you could ask Claude or GPT to build a game with physics. You might get code that's quite plausible, a very simple prototype that sometimes will work okay, but often has a lot of bugs in it. Well, Gemini 3 in their demos built entire games like Ridiculous Fishing, the iOS game from 2013, which had working mechanics, sound effects, and music, like the full game. And it had accurate physics for catching fish. And previous models really struggled with this types of activity, whereas Gemini 3 can do it in just a few prompts. Again, devil's in the detail here, and we'll be really interested to see at what point Google gets stretched to its limits. Okay, moving to number 6, which is the ability for Gemini to read very complex screenshots and take action on them. So previous models are really good at describing what might be in a screenshot, but they can't interact with it. So if you give it access to your web browser, it can take screenshots of things maybe. So this is agent mode, but it's not very good at figuring out, I need to press this button and that button to do this thing. So it could tell you, the information on screen, but not really good at figuring out where to press. And that's why I think agent mode and autonomous agents, they get branded online, have not been hugely successful or popular. Well, Gemini 3 has scored 72% on the Screenshot Pro test, which is double the previous best score of 36%. And this test is only testing a model whether it can look at a screenshot, understand the UI it sees, and figure out where to click and take the right action quickly. And really interesting ways this has been used is, for example, giving it access to 3.5 hours of footage from a meeting and getting it to produce transcripts, speaker names, timestamps, key sections, action items, all those types of important parts, even where people disagreed and agreed, but doing so by watching the actual video and the actual footage as well. So the type of innovations this might unlock is the ability for agents to navigate software themselves. Again, this isn't an area that I've been particularly excited by within AI because I think APIs, so just transferring information through the back end, is much quicker and easier. But it wouldn't surprise me if there were really some interesting use cases emerging because of this over time. The personal shopping assistants, that type of idea. Number 8 is the ability for Gemini to use multiple valid approaches to figure out a solution to a problem. So often a language model can struggle when there's no single correct answer to a problem, which is most problems in our world because it's a very complex world. Ask GPT 5.1 for 3 different approaches to reduce our customer churn, you'd often get different variations of the same or similar approach. Ultimately, the model is pattern matching to common solutions rather than exploring very different strategies. Now, again, think about much of these innovations not being suddenly made possible because you can make a model do these things, but doing so within a single prompt or just a couple of prompts. So the speed to this raw intelligence and the ease to access and utilize this raw intelligence. In other models, this might take a lot of, twisting its arm, making sure it's got the right information and context. Whereas what Gemini is claiming to do is make this 10 times easier. And a good example is Gemini scored 45.1% on the Arc AGI 2 test, which is designed to have multiple potential solutions in this test. It shows you a few different examples of patterns and will ask the model to infer the rule, for example, with more often than not, more than a single valid interpretation. GPT scored 17.6, Gemini 2.5 scored 4.9%. And again, as I said, the Gemini 3 model just scored 45.1%. That's a massive leap. And I think Matt Schumer said this perfectly, which is, he said previous models often had a certain spikiness. Their quality varied wildly depending on different tasks. You could get brilliant at one task, but just okay results on another. Whereas Gemini 3 feels just more consistent across the board. And when a model is reliably good at most things instead of occasionally brilliant, that's where you build entire systems around it. So yeah, let's conclude for today's episode. I mean, so what's actually changed this week? Well, Google has just released 2 models that have broken the internet. And they've broken thresholds that people have really struggled to break for a very long time. Nano Banana now can merge 14 images perfectly. It can generate text perfectly. Gemini 3 can apparently do a single task within a couple of prompts for over 24 hours. So yeah, safe to say Google is super competitive again. And as I said at the beginning, Sam Altman announced to OpenAI that he is worried. And I mean, I would be too, because Google is a huge Goliath, has incredibly talented people, and is now making huge leaps into the future and being a market leader provider. Anyway, as always, the most important thing I can now recommend is go try it for yourself, go play, go have fun, see if it works in your day-to-day work. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you next week.